of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll continue with a moment of silence. All right. Okay, so, can everybody hear me okay? Okay. All right, so first item under additions and approval to the agenda. Under the consent agenda, we need to add declare surplus for the old athletic uniforms. And there's also been a request to move the bond discussion to the front of the agenda and limit it to 1 hour from 6 to 7. And then we will continue on with the board meeting after that. Is that correct? Okay. Anybody?
I move to approve. I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Okay. It's been approved, so we will. Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Signs? Okay. All right, so we will begin with our town hall then. Okay, so what questions do you guys have?
No, I think they're just pretty.
Okay. All right, so we have a list of questions that we'd like to ask and just receive feedback from you guys on. And the first one would be, what did you like or didn't like about the last bond?
Can you refresh on what the last bond was?
So the last bond would have been pre-K through 6 in Paxico, and then 7 through 12 here in Alma, and it would have been, would have been improvements to the high school?
Actually,
No, that was all new facilities.
All
new
in
places.
okay. So.
High
and then-
school came down, junior high came down, new facilities built up. Junior high moving over here with a new ag shop over here,
With the price.
which was 26 million.
Yeah, with a approximate price tag of 26 million. So, with that refresher, anybody have anything that they want to add about what they liked or didn't like about that? If you guys want to come back to the questions too, if you've had a chance to think. The next question was, what if anything, would you support or like to see in a bond?
These are questions for them,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry, just getting caught up.
So it wasn't addressed, but the format of this was, we're here to listen to you. We're asking you guys the questions. If you have any feedback, we're not here to give you more information. We're wanting information back so we can help make decisions. So, I mean, we have no information to give because we have nothing. We're at the ground level. We have nothing we're working with right now. So we're looking for feedback.
Because you have no option that you can.
There is
set
no option on the table at all right now. Nothing. Yeah, I don't know, yeah. And I know there's been some confusion because we had a bond, we didn't have a bond, and yeah, but right now, there is nothing on the table. So.
Well, I voted for the bond last time, so obviously see the old high school come down, but I realized that it has age to it, that it has issues, and it would take a lot of money to meet standards that would be required. So, I hate to see it go, but if that's where it needs to go, I would support that.
I didn't grow up in Alma, but where I was from, we have a problem with our junior high and high school that's been there since 1912, and they're wanting to tear it down, and people are having a problem with it. Me, quite honestly, I went to the junior high there, but, you know, it's one of those things where if the building's gonna cost you more money than what it's worth, it's not worth keeping around anymore, you know, I'm quite partial to getting rid of it, quite honestly. Just because you can't do much with it, you can't add on to it very good. It's a stone building. I mean, foundation problems, you have to spend a ton of money to fix foundation problems and that building like that. We'd rather build a new building and have that good for the next 100 years than to try and fix a building and spend twice as much money fixing it, you know? That's just my opinion, but.
Yeah, I would just add that, because we didn't say this, and you may all already know this, but in the course of having the last bond issue and now, we have had structural engineers come in and look at our buildings to make sure, because to your point, we didn't want to add a bunch of money to a building if it wasn't structurally sound. And looking at those buildings, we did find that structurally the building's okay. Yes, it does need some work, it needs some improvements, but structurally it is okay.
Structurally fine, but the amount of flexibility in a building like that is.
I thought the fire, or the flue was falling away from the building though.
I don't. Can you add to that, Brad?
Yeah, that was the initial thought from the roof leaks and the structural engineer, and Patrick Shutters here at PHS Construction that also was hired for $1, by the way, to be our construction management at risk supervisor. And so if I'm saying something out of turn, let me know. But we checked that and it's all sound, and we thought that that was what was pulling apart. It was causing a leak of water, but it is not. Is that a correct statement?
Yep. Yeah, and probably the foundation question getting answered is probably really important when the structural engineer. And that would be concerning to me as well, if you've got a failing foundation. I think they determined that was going to be the thing.
So if that's not causing a lot of issues, what is?
The roof itself. Just as an overview, we have $2.6 million worth of roofs that are out of warranty, 20-year warranties. So we keep patching, like we just spent almost $1,000 this recent bill to have somebody go up, take the tile off of the roof at the high school, find the leak, patch it, put the tile back on. So all those type of things. And then the other thing, to your point about the foundation, there was the video that showed the water coming through, where it was had a hole punched in, a waterproof, in putting either the internet or something in, possibly at some point in time, and then found from the structural engineer that some of it was basically just to the fact of getting the water away through having the drain hooked up. So, now, it doesn't mean still that it needs more work done, but not major. And they indicated to us in the structural engineering report that that stone is actually gets wet and dry, and so it wasn't a concern. So. Good question.
It is limestone, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's just wet.
What's the plan if the bond doesn't pass? Do I have a plan?
currently, we don't have a bond on the table to even be voted on, so.
If, let's just say we don't get a bond, what are we gonna do?
We've had differing discussions about that. We need to reduce our overall expenditures as a district. And so we don't really want to cut programs. We don't want to cut, our ag program or our wood shop. We would rather reduce our overall operating, which could be done through reduction of square footage or closing buildings. I know at one point we kind of had looked at seeing if we could even close the current junior high right now. Could we fit kids in both the elementary schools and the high school to combine it that way? I don't think we can quite fit everybody without modulars or some other type of addition, but at this point, I don't know that we really know exactly. As a board, we haven't talked completely about what we would do in that scenario. It's not a great scenario for us.
But we have asked the question,
I-
we have asked the question to our administration and principals, what can you do? What room do you have? Where can you operate out of? And each principal has given us blueprints that said kids can go here, we can fit this many classes here, 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 and here, in worst case scenarios. So, I mean, the question's been asked, but the board has made no decision or any discussion about, hey, if this doesn't pass, this is where we're going. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And if I mind interject, I know it's a meeting, but the other thing, just to your point, to your question too, budgetarily, the board and district has been able to cut $385,000 of local taxes in 2-year period. Much the first year, about 122, and the remainder when the bond, this last bond that did the gym, and then something at each of the schools came off the books. So that helped also cut taxes, but prior to that, and we also have been able to increase then our percentage as far as our budget towards instruction. And so I think those are both things that need to be continued. And referencing, when we initially started this, it was $1.84 a square foot, what we were paying just for the maintaining of the building. That didn't include personnel. And according to our architects, we were over school districts our size, about 100,000 square foot. So basically, we're spending $200,000 a year more than school districts our size just in maintaining buildings. So then that was the decisions and starting to, what do we do? We, thank goodness, we had savings or had cash in reserve to be able to make up the difference, but that now is to a point that basically, just like your own home budget, we have basically a month and a half of expenses, and most of it is personnel, but to move forward with in contingency and with our funds as far as cash. And the importance too for everybody, we need to, because people are like, well, why do you have so much money stashed or whatever? Well, you have the money because, like food service, for instance, we don't start receiving food service till August or September, and you got to order it back in July. So you got to have money to move that forward. Or in special education, why do you have so much? Because if a child moves in that has severe needs, we got to be able to meet that need per federal law. So those kind of things, just as a reference point.
Questions on that? So, just continue down here, but do you guys have any thoughts on consolidating the district in Alma as a way to reduce the overall expenses? Creating one location for all schools? Let's have feedback on that.
Would it create it cheaper for moving kids around? Would it be cheaper if everything was in Alma? like busing and all that stuff? Or would it be just about the same as going to Paxico or Maple Hill? I mean, because buses are expensive, wear and tear on buses are expensive, you know, it's, gas is not cheap anymore.
Pretty cheap for many years.
It would depend on the amount of work that would be done, probably. I mean, if you did all new facilities, and I know that's gonna be pretty expensive.
Mhm.
I guess
But,
cheaper than, I guess, what alternative are you?
well, like the bond that we were gonna pass, or we were voting on, you know, had the grade school basically in Paxico and everything else here in Alma.
The question is, will it be cheaper busing, having everything in Alma? Or
Yeah.
The way it's being bused right now, right?
Well, yeah, it should be, right?
Transportation,
So-
I think we learned it was kind of a wash, didn't we?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we have some estimates, the best estimates we could do at this point in time, that Brad is able to come up with for us. And so if we had the K through 6 or pre-K through 6 of Paxico and 7 through 12 in Alma, be about $122,000 approximately for transportation costs. Whereas if it was all in Alma, it's about $110,000, so it's only $12,000 difference. It's not a lot, because you're still busing kids.
Mhm.
You're either busing more kids from Alma to Paxico, or you're busing more kids from other areas of the district into one location. But just having 2 locations does save us some money.
Yeah.
Without having, 3 locations. But it is pretty close to the same cost. That's a good question. So,
And Deb can't remember, did both bonds, the big one we had in Alma and the one we were gonna vote on, did it have like new buses and that stuff in there? Or was it with the old buses we had?
That was just facilities.
I mean, eventually buses do wear out, you know, and
The idea is that we stop spending all of our operating budget on a monthly basis on repairing buildings and put it back into our other assets, as in buses and bus pay. I mean, we've gone from $10 an hour to 25 or $15 an hour in the last 2 years to pay. We can't find bus drivers at $15 an hour. So where do we have to go in order to get enough pay there? Well, we don't have the budget to keep pushing money there, so it's got to get out of these buildings and into something that is more efficient.
yeah.
I'm correct, Brad, you can't put buses or anything like
Correct.
that into a bond.
That's correct. You can't?
No.
Oh. That makes sense.
Any other thoughts on moving things here to Alma? Feedback on that?
We totally understand how tough of a conversation this can be and how hard it is, probably, especially, you know, we're on YouTube live. I have no idea how many people are watching. But the issue is this is not going to get solved without having some tough conversations, and it's probably not going to get solved without irritating your neighbor a little bit. But if we don't start coming free with information on what will happen, nobody likes a top-down approach. Here's what we're going to do. That doesn't work, especially in a district like this. So if we don't have what you guys will support, then you're left to us 6, 7 people to make decisions and go try it. And honestly, the go try it is kind of expensive for us as well. And what's it cost to put on a special election?
10,000.
Yeah, so, you know, we're throwing 10,000 here, 10,000 there, get this building looked at for 10,000, hire this individual for 10,000. I mean, I speak for myself, but I'm kind of 10,000 down for test operations. We know that our budget is being burnt up by being in so many towns with so many buildings. We know that they're burning up because the buildings are too old to be spending our monthly wages on those. Monthly wages as in our monthly income from the state and federals. Those are questions that are pretty tough to argue with. So Do you want a split district? Do you want a couple of towns involved? Do you want one town involved? If it's one town involved, do you want a complete new school here? Or do you want to keep the old and kind of dress it up? If it's split, do you want to dress both up or do you want to build new in both locations? We already tested the new in both locations idea at the last election and it failed. So obviously the patrons spoke there. But I'm willing to have these tough conversations on live TV, so I would hope that some other people that are actually in charge would be willing to have some of those tough conversations with us, because that's what we're looking for. You're not going to offend anybody sitting at this table. I've tried for the last 4 years, and I swung for the fence, and I still haven't done it. So
There was also thrown out at the last one that I was told phasing. Is that something that people want to do? Phase. Say you do one phase here, you do one phase there, if you were doing two. Or even one. Phasing. You do one now, you do one later.
What does that mean, now or later? Is like
You would do
now?
part of it now, and part of it,
10,
Just
20?
like your bond.
yeah,
Like
I
two
don't know.
bonds?
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
question. What is it? When do you do the second part? If you did that.
But ultimately, you have two bonds.
If that's an option, is what you're saying.
Everything's an option right now.
Mm.
I'm just saying that was thrown out there by, that was a comment made. Just being fully transparent.
And actually, if I can add to that, there
I
was
wasn't there, so
other
please do.
conversation. The last meeting was in Maple Hill, and there was quite a few people there. So from the people that were there at the meeting, I would also say that I asked the question, would you support a bond if we built all brand new in a central location that was not in Alma? If it was all K-12 in one location, and there was support from that. And I was a little surprised because that's, at least when we looked at that a year or so ago, that was over $50 million. And we know construction costs have gone up dramatically since that time, but there was support for that. There was support for that option, and there was also support for an option of two locations. A lot of concern from people that live in the Maple Hill area of busing their kids, little kids, all the way to Alma. So I'll just give you that feedback from the last meeting as well.
Was there any other operational savings from being in one location versus two locations? You asked about bus. You asked about busing. Was that just busing or was that all operation?
That was just us. I think the overall, if I'm looking at this right, I think the overall savings, projected savings is about $20,000 per year between having in one location in Alma as opposed to Paxicody and Alma. There's 20,000 more savings if it's all in Alma.
Would you have to build more here if you were all in one location versus being in a split location?
Yes.
I think so.
So the bond would be larger if it was all in one location?
I don't think that's right.
Or
It was
would you
like
have-
32
It
million.
depends on if
Same-
you use the existing facility
Yeah.
or building.
Would you have enough adequate facilities if you were in all locations compared to the two options?
Either way, you
Because
have
I
to
think if
do.
you're coming here, I think that option had one less gym.
Yeah, that's correct. You're losing the gym.
Yeah, I mean, and then it wouldn't be so great to build a facility out in the middle of nowhere when we just spent the last bond building that gym. That's the money doesn't drain there, you know, it's just, or if we had the gym here, they have to go all the way from the school to the gym to play sports. I think that would be kind of worthless, I mean, in my mind.
Because that is something I've heard from people, was leave football field, everything here. I had heard that, I heard it today, but I had heard that in the past, somebody threw that out there. But
I mean, I do remember the big bond for Alma, everything in Alma, was to tear down the old high school. But, I mean, you've been saying if nothing's really wrong with the high school, then you'd be adding on just some facilities for, like, say, junior high or some more grade school facilities. So that bond wouldn't be a $32 million bond, it would be rather, way less, so. I mean, I think a lot of people didn't like the $32 million bond, it's $32 million. But if the high school was still sound, then you're really putting down a lot more money, a lot less money. It'd be, so, I mean, that's something to look into as well, you know, I mean, or phasing out, or, you know, phasing in both of them, you know, I don't know. I'm more partial to have everything in one place. I mean, I like to have everything in one place. Because the fact that, like, in your house, I don't want my garage in my house and then an outbuilding way out in the middle of nowhere, because I can't see it at all times, you know, and if you have more of your staff here and issues that come up, it's easier to protect one building, one spot than it is to protect different, I guess, so, I don't know.
Just point blank, we're not holding you to it, but would you support a $15 million bond K-12 in Alma?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I voted yes for the last bond because I feel that we need something, you know, I didn't want to just stay with what we had, but, I mean, I would rather support something that's all in Alma because, I mean, I like the K through 12 because, little kids, my kids like looking at the high schoolers and being like, wow, I want to be that when I grow up, you know. But if the high schoolers are at the spot, you know, they have no role models to look up to other than going to the games or, I mean, you don't see them walking about, you know, to school, or the high schoolers can't go to the grade school to help out with small children when they have their off classes. You know, just a lot of that kind of stuff. It's kids mixed with kids is a good thing. I've always thought, you know, and role models are big these days, I guess, you know, but, I mean, that's my 2 cents, I guess.
I appreciate it, thank you.
What's more financially responsible, to move everything or keep what we have here and renovate the old high school or build a new high school? I mean,
Do you mean like move everything
Yeah,
like to
yeah,
where it's
I-
more central location? Is
yeah,
that what you
if
mean?
we were to move everything brand new to Paxco, to me, that seems like a lot more money. Because we have a gym, right, a football field, that, would we just abandon all this?
It is a lot, yeah.
It is a lot. And they weren't talking about moving it to Mexico.
Wherever, I don't
Yeah,
care.
no, and it is, it's 52 million.
I mean,
We asked about it.
To me, it
It's
seems
what it
whatever
was.
is probably the most cost effective is what we should be doing. I don't care where it goes. I too am not from here, by the way. I'm from a split school. And where I went to high school, they did have it out in the middle of the country, but they had the middle school, junior high, high school central office all in one location. Football field, kids could travel from here to there. But it was out in the middle of the country. I think a centralized location is better for learning, better for safety, transportation, cost, whether it be here, Maple Hill, it doesn't matter. I just think it'd be kind of
You mean a
silly.
K-12, not necessarily centralized?
What's that?
Do you mean a centralized or a K-12?
I'd put it all in one location, centralize everything, and the whole kid caboodle.
I guess maybe I'm a little confused because originally your question was, is it more financially responsible to build a centralized facility? And we said that was 52 million, and is that financially responsible? Or you can move everything into one location.
Yeah.
However, it may not be considered centralized, but you can do that for 15, 16 million, whatever they've told us, which is more financially
You
responsible.
can bring everything in here, basically, and just expand around here, right?
Okay.
15, 16 mil to do that.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand your.
Yeah, but I mean, that what you're saying is if we brought everything in-house right here, and
Well, I think one of the plans we looked at was 15 million.
and then we're gonna close everything else and just bring it all in-house.
Maybe I misspoke. Kelly, did I misspeak?
I think it's around 17 million. I can read it.
So 17 million in small print,
Yeah,
redefined print.
this was, and you know, it's,
Million here, million there, Justin.
Yeah. But I think that since then, though, we even took the shop out of there, the shop building, which was 2 million, which brought it down to 15. Jerome, am I right, or?
I don't know.
yeah.
But
All
about
plan-
20
plans
million
so
to have
far
all
been
in-house.
Bad ideas. All plans so far have been bad ideas. We discuss these plans as if this is a possible solution, or this is a possible solution. None of them are solutions. They were all bad plans. And I don't know if that's because people creating the plans have no idea what goes on in this district. We have to hire those people to do it. I don't think we had enough input. I don't know if we had enough guts to have enough input on this board. I had an idea before that everybody made fun of. It consolidated number. I don't know what the cost of it was. If that's what you're
Well, I thought it
asking
was
me.
15 million. That's the plan that I was
Maybe.
referring to, actually, was 15 million and it consolidated everybody in Allen. But that's why I
I
asked.
don't think that plan has a chance, but it makes too much sense.
So if everything was in Alma, you would do some renovation to the high school, and then what would the elementary and junior high? Are you tearing down the old elementary and building new? I mean,
I don't think we tear down much of anything.
for 17 million or 15, whatever it is, what exactly would it look like?
There would be
What
a,
was
there would
that?
be a junior high portion built right out here in the parking lot, if I remember the plans correctly. There would be a junior high building
Just
parked
across the
there,
street.
just across the street. And there would be renovations to the shop, renovations to the high school, renovations to the elementary school, and that would be it.
Where would
There would have to
parking
be-
go?
There would have to be renovations. I would just say, I don't know that we can say exactly what that would be right now.
Sure.
But there would have to be renovations done to the high school. There would also need to be additions built on in order to accommodate two pre-K through sixes.
Built on to what?
Probably the elementary
The
school
elementary.
now. And then we'd also have to accommodate a seventh and eighth grade somewhere. And so I think one plan had an addition in between the high school and this building right now to add on some, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I mean, that's one idea. I mean, there's lots of different ideas, but in order to accommodate, the additional classrooms that we would need.
But if you used the parking lot for some of the new building, where would the parking go in?
Actually, there wasn't any parking taken up, but it was the kind of the hard place on the west side of the elementary.
On the south side, because the west side they wouldn't let us build on because there's a sewer there, so that was out, they moved it, and moved like where the daycare would be gone, and so there would be, it's not gonna take up the whole spot, remember, we don't have that much money. I mean, $15 million sounds like a lot of money, but by the time you renovate the high school, renovate the grade school, you're gonna build a smaller addition on there. It's not gonna take up all the parking spot there. However, parking around Alma period is not necessarily the handiest. But we also do own land on that way towards the football field, you know, even the practice field, not that we're gonna park there and walk a quarter of a mile all the way to school, but,
Because I know when we got the new gym, it was like, well, then we can host different events and whatever, but you have to have places for people to park.
right.
So,
I just want to clarify one thing, just because I don't want misinformation. So we did ask about the sewer that got talked about over there. There's nothing in the impeding adding on the west.
We've talked to the city of Alma about that.
Yep. I talked to Michael about it.
Okay.
Good to know.
Just in case it ever shows up in a future plan, I don't want anybody to say, well, you can perfect.
So there is no, it's been confirmed by the city of Alma that there is no major concern about sewer going across the east part of the playground out here.
Yes.
Okay. Just for the record, I just wanna make sure that was brought up and everybody could hear that, so.
the east part, west.
West, sorry, bad directions. Can anybody tell me what an amount was? I mean, I think some of this is gonna come down to helping taxpayers understand what it's gonna cost them. I mean, what do they want? Well, what they want is, what does it cost? I think at some of these questions, what's it cost? Is it possible to do the K through 6 in Paxico and a 7 through 12 in Alma on 15 million? Is that-
One of the questions is how much
Yeah.
would you support as far as the budget?
Which changes on both all that, I'm sure, right? I mean, just.
I think, did we run, and it was about the same
Yes.
all in Alma and just did the basics, and then did Alma and tax code, and basically just the basics of what we would have to add on.
It was pretty comfortable.
That's pretty complicated, obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, they are comparable in cost. They're both about close to 17 million each for each option.
What was the cost of the last bond? Does anybody?
24.5.
How much?
24.5 million, 24.65.
But the real question is, what's the total cost with the interest? You know, the language for the language on the ballot should say, are you for spending $28 million to build these schools in various towns, plus $11 million additional in interest? That's how the ballot should read. We didn't discuss that at all. In fact, last time we had a meeting in this room, what did I say? Oh, I remember reading somewhere, interest alone was $11 million, and I nearly got shouted down as if I were wrong. So I just gave up until the next day. I don't know if I got the email. I forwarded you the email from the bond people stating that I was correct about the interest. But nobody ever discusses the interest. What's the cost of the bond? There's no way you're correct. I don't know what the interest cost was, but the bond didn't cost $24 billion.
Good question. That I really like to ask is, what I want to prevent is going bond to bond to bond to bond. I don't want
You'll
my,
have to move.
I mean, I don't want my kids to grow up here later on and be going through a bond issue as well, you know? I'd like a facility that would last, that, you know, we could save money and be able to, you know, I mean, it's like you're a house and you gotta keep getting loans to pay off this and pay off that, you know, and be debt free, you know? May not an issue, it may not ever happen, of course, like it says, but I mean, I would not mind spending more money on a bond, maybe my taxes, if I knew that it would be the last bond. I mean, quite honestly.
That's kind of hard to do. That's hard.
I know, but I mean,
I get what you're saying, though. I
Yeah.
appreciate that approach.
I mean, like, you know, new AC units, just like that would last, you know, 40, 50 years, you know, I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm just spitballing here, but,
They're 20.
you know.
Unfortunately, they're 20, that's right, that's because that's what we're at the end of.
Yeah.
And one thing that the district has done too is we're beginning an energy performance contract, and like LED lights in the gym and LED lights through the buildings. And it's a 10-year lease purchase that the equipment, including the HVAC and the air scrubbers for the viruses and things and rooms and more efficient and everything else, that will pay for itself, guaranteed savings over 10 years to pay for the equipment. So trying to do things like Justin made reference to, that we aren't spending budget things on operations things to maintain things, and again, then our maintenance costs should come down as well, because having, to your point, newer equipment.
To add to that, I don't want anybody, to fully understand where the school district is. We save money every year that goes into construction accounts that we would buy new buses with, that we would build new opportune buildings at the district, but it's been spent on HVAC, it's been spent on pay increases. We've moved salaries into that area, correct? To make sure that our budget was, that everybody was getting paid. So we've started spending money that's designed to keep the buildings up on payroll because our budget was stressed so far. You remove those things, our budget starts to open back up. I'm not gonna say we're ever not gonna be a bond to bond, but if we get our operation budget back and we have a smaller facility to maintain, it would make more sense that at least the bonds may go down. Now, construction costs go up, so they may still be $15 million bonds, but instead of being $30 million bonds 20 years from now, they're 15. I mean, that's what we're trying to look at.
I just don't want to keep paying money on a bond for one item, and then 20 years later, using that bond to pay for the exact same item, you know? If you have an 84 car that's old, I want to get rid of that car and get a new car. A newer car, that would be longevity, you know, just, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to keep paying on the same exact thing, every bond, pay the exact same thing, it just doesn't make sense.
Kate, did you have a question?
Hey, maybe I apologize for being late. So, based on your surveys or your, what you talked to, I mean, is it, what do you think caused it to fail last time? Was it price solely, or was it other like bad designs, or, I'm just questioning if you figured that out yet, I guess. Because you've cut quite a bit off of the, what sounds like from 24 down to 15 of what you're talking now.
So I was throwing out some examples too, so I know everybody that hears that, there's gonna be like, well, Justin said they can build a $15 million building in Alma, and I get that, but I'm tired of not talking numbers and getting down to it, so here we are, right? I'm gonna start throwing numbers out and ideas out, and you guys can say, well, the guy's crazy, but here I am, so.
That's also a question we have. Was 20, well, and we did get feedback, 24 was too high.
She's getting the numbers
I was
right
gonna
here.
say,
Some people
but-
voted no because it was too high. Some
Yeah.
people voted no because it was split in Paxco and Alma. Some people voted no because we were tearing the high school down. How many in each area? There's no way to know that. So,
It was split in a lot of different directions. The reasons were the cost, the buildings, the old buildings, both the junior high and the high school. People didn't want to see either torn down. And then just, yeah, having two locations. So it was kind of almost, not equally, but there was a lot of similar concerns, mostly on those three topics. When you say we're at it, when you're looking?
Money. Planning.
Yeah,
and
money.
Planning of the bond.
Yeah,
Not having detailed classroom locations and.
which was really hard to have. I mean, to present a bond and to say, well, this classroom's gonna go here, and this one's going to go here, and these are the blueprints, and this is what's finalized. That was, that's still gonna be very difficult to
Willie
do.
drove Ohio Street.
Mhm. So,
You would close Ohio Street down?
No, I'm not saying we will, I'm just
Oh.
saying the last bond, that was
an option.
a point of contention with individuals not knowing whether or not the street would be closed, whether or not funding should go towards moving utilities. So just a point of concern within some individuals.
I'm gonna be the a-hole, but you know what? I don't think the school's job is to preserve old buildings. The school's job is to educate kids. If the building has outlived its life, it's time to go. Give it to the Historical Society. Let them maintain it. That's not our job. That's not your guys' job, to preserve an old building. Let it go, it's a building.
Well, the voters made the right choice, then, didn't they?
I mean, that was brought up
I mean,
multiple times too, so.
Yeah, it's an old building. It's served its purpose. We can find a new life for it, find a new life for it, but let's go educate kids.
Do you anticipate having a bond ready or a option in the spring? Or are we waiting all the way until next November, or?
you think
when
we ought to
do you-
have one ready for the spring?
Say it
I mean,
again.
would you set an expectation for the board to have a bond ready for the spring? I mean, as a patron, as a tax-paying patron and an employee of the district, are you like, hey, come on, guys, let's do something? Or are you like, hey, let's do some more research, let's have some more surveys, let's ask some more questions? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I truly
Yeah.
want to know.
I would rather, let's put something out there in April, but not the same thing that we already did. I mean, we tried the Paxco Alma thing, took a different option, or, I don't know,
Yeah.
but moving forward.
I heard this, what, if we did a ballot on it, what would be the problem with putting several on the ballot? You know, that way you get some kind of feedback on what people are wanting, you know what I mean? I mean, now you have no idea what people want, all Alma, Paxco Alma, Maple Hill, Paxco Alma. I mean, if you had a multiple ballot on there, you know, then you'd actually to know what people would want. you'd have a great idea. I mean, you're not even gonna be the finalized thing, but it gives you guys, do like a ballot, but it gives you guys an idea of what people want. And that way you can have more information about making your choice on, something in the future, for the actual ballot, I don't know, that's an option. I mean, if you really want to know what people think, that's.
Which one would you support more, A, B, or C?
All Alma.
Yeah, but I mean, like when you're saying like multiple ballots,
Oh, like
multiple
have a
options.
ballot where, A would be, all Alma, B would be Alma, Paxco, C would be, I mean, that way you have a great idea of what people want,
And that's a great point. I think that's why we tried to spend as much money as we did on the surveys,
Mhm.
which came back 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 45, 55, 50-50, 50-50. I mean, the issue is, again, it comes down to the fact that it depends on what location you are in as to who supports what.
When were the surveys? I don't remember that survey being out. That's why I'm kind of asking. Maybe it wasn't very known to people that the survey was going to be out. I didn't know at all.
There were calls that were done by the communications consultant back in the end of July, early August. And they were basically cold calls. There wasn't a great response rate. If I remember correctly, I think there were less than 100 total responses. They did those for 3 weeks. Kelly probably.
In
But
addition- in
We've
addition
sent
to
some
that-
voluntary ones.
But Kelly's got-
In addition to that, though, we did send out a link to a survey to all parents and district staff to get input that way too. It was an electronic survey, it wasn't a paper survey, but it was an electronic survey that we tried to gather some information.
But there are a lot of voters that are not parents of students.
You're right, that's,
And I feel like a lot of them probably voted against the last one because they didn't want their taxes to go up, period. They didn't want to hear it anymore. But I think, a multiple part survey or whatever mailed to every voter or something might give some insight into what would pass, because it's the voters who are going to decide. Putting it on the ballot, it kind of reminds me back to the presidential elections where you have 14 candidates and then guess who wins because it's split up so many different ways and it's maybe not even the most popular person. So, just my opinion.
We actually found out you can't do that.
Correct.
not on a ballot.
Not on a ballot. We found out you can't do that.
Yeah, but like just, I don't know, if you can.
Just clarifying that, because this is the second time we've talked about that.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, we actually did have a discussion about that.
But we can do a survey.
Yeah, how many
Do a survey.
registered voters are there?
There's 2,200 and roughly 50 registered voters. The last election, about 80% turned out. Traditionally, Wabunsee Schools on elections has about 75% of the voters turn out. And the last, if 134 would have voted the other way, it would have passed.
It was 92% turnout. Like 2,080 votes or something like that, right?
That's correct.
2,200 something.
Yep.
And that's good to hear, that's great.
That's a
They
pretty
all
good
should.
survey, don't you think?
Yes, but I mean, they were voting on a specific thing. If a survey could be sent to all those.
The district did send out paper survey via mailboxes to all registered voters as well. But again, sometimes the registered voter address doesn't match where we send it. So we ran into some of that, because we still have those over there.
Well, and sending links, not everybody is computer savvy and whatever.
But we did send it by mail to every single registered voter. So, I mean, 2,200 and some odd deals went out by mail. Not saying everybody got it, because there are times that checks get lost in the mail.
And again, that's cost as well. How much is
Yeah.
that?
I want to say 2,000, but I'm holding to it.
Oh, no, it got answered.
All right, so we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left. question is, and I think we've touched on it, or whoever has wanted to touch on it has, with consideration of the locations you choose in the previous question, how much funding should be considered in a bond? So the last one was 24.5, yeah. And so we talked about 15, 17. There are numbers that feel more comfortable than others. Obviously, the lower the better, I'm sure, but realistically.
I guess it gets, another way to ask it is, there a certain limit that you would get to that you would say, no, I'm not supporting that because of the cost?
I think for people to make that decision, they need to more know what it's gonna cost them on my property, what am I looking at? You know, but I think I know of some who felt like my taxes are gonna go up this amount per month. I have been at town hall meetings and it was that much per year. So there was misunderstanding there.
Right.
And I don't know, that person may still just vote no based on taxes, but I think when you say 15 million or 24, I have no clue what that means to me on my own taxes.
That's a great point.
So these are just some estimates for a 25-year bond, though. So for every 10 million of bonds on a $100,000 assessed valuation home, it's approximately $132 annually.
$132 a year on a $100,000 home on a,
For every $10 million.
every $10 million you spend
So you could,
for a 25-year bond.
right.
I didn't mean to speak over, but I thought it was a little louder, maybe the computer would hear too.
So if you were talking about the 15 million, it would be about $200 a year.
Annually, on a $100,000 home,
Yeah.
which there's also people that have a lot of land and agriculture and stuff, which all that is figured too, so. We have figures for all that.
Sure.
So we're not still paying on the old bond, correct?
We made our last payment in September.
Correct. So, quite honestly, our taxes should have went down.
We saved $385 million, or $1,000, $385,000 in the last year.
And then, so.
Your valuations go up every year.
Yeah.
So your taxes may not go down. We can talk about it in this light, but the fact is, your valuations, you ever seen them go down?
And the mills, so the mills that dropped off because of the school bond will be absorbed by other things in the county usually. So you may not see a huge decrease in taxes just because the bond came off, because other things in the county, I don't know exactly what, but other things in the county will absorb some of that. So,
It's available for them for sure.
yes.
Some of them would say, oh, well, there's 30 mills coming off, we're gonna grab an extra 5 this year so we can do it, and there's 5 of them that do that, that's 25 mills that go back on, your valuations go up, you saw a tax increase on a year that the school got zero money for any new facilities, which was elaborately discussed in all of the town halls at the last one, was we don't wanna see that happen, because as long as you want a school in your communities, we need to do a bond to fix this in some sort, whether it's a maintenance bond of $5 million or a K through 12 in Egypt at 52 million. We've got to do something to fix this, and so we're going to be adding to your taxes again. Brett, you got any success stories over education, where we rank within our local school districts, within the Mid-East League? How are our students, how are we doing? Give us a grade card.
Students, as far as schools our size in Mid-East League and area schools, we consistently have ranked higher in our assessment scores than them. The data's dated, but from our last data that we have put together, that we are consistently better in all areas.
In all areas, we are consistently better than all other surrounding schools?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That means kids can learn in our environment. Okay. Is it fair to say that you asked your kids and that we have, our previous generations have invested in our kids in our district, right? I think it's fair to say it's okay, we're spending your money wisely. We have the best kids, we have the best teachers, and we are putting that to good use. We would like to ask you to pony up and help us fix a problem. Is that a rude question to ask? I don't think it is. We are the best district locally. I don't know how, I'm trying not to beat a drum, but I'm just saying we're pretty darn good with the money you've given us. Now, did the grass get thrown out onto the road? Did the grass get thrown into the bushes? Yeah. There are things that happen that people drive by and they get extremely frustrated with and say, man, they just don't take care of their facilities. But I think we've made a building last from 1917, 1920. We're in 2021. Somehow we have managed to make that last 100 years. And there are people that don't live in houses around here without updating them quite drastically every 10 years. So they choose to spend that on themselves and reflect on a school that we're not taking good care of our facilities, so I'm not going to give them any more money, yet we've made our buildings last 100 and some years, and we're producing the best students locally. That was my pitch for the last 3 minutes.
All right. Is there any other comments or questions? If not, it's almost 7, so we're going to go ahead and continue with our meeting. Brad?
I would encourage you, if you have questions, either contact individually board members, their addresses are online, and emails and those kind of things, and or if you wanted to even write it on the card and give it to one of us as you leave, or you're more than welcome to stay for the board meeting if you choose to. But you can leave at any point in time. But if you wanted to, either write that or contact the school district, you're more than welcome to contact me and or, like I said earlier, the board members be able to provide your input or have questions.
Thank you to those who did come out.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming back. Okay, well, then that means we're moving on to reports. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
I don't have anything to add to my written report unless you have any questions.
Principal Cricket?
I have nothing further to add to my report. If you have any questions, do you have there?
Josh?
I don't have anything additional either.
She's
Oh,
actually
sorry.
here. She's not generally, but give her a chance. It's okay, she's not generally here.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to your report? No, I did not. All right. I've never met her.
I know. I'm excited she's here.
All right. Gary's not here, right?
No, it's not.
Josh didn't have anything, and Deb's not here. All right.
Josh, real quick, so it sounds like, have we had any more problems with junior high since the
Nothing,
last steps?
nothing
Okay,
yet.
through
I'm
you.
hoping no more issues.
Well, it sounds like that was, you
Yeah.
know, when you're touching it and it's disintegrating, that's probably a pretty good indication that we had a little problem there, so.
Yeah,
That's
it's all
good.
new lines run from end to end for that modular. And yeah, the existing wires didn't have any kind of weatherproofing, like however long ago they were installed. So
And no false alarms since.
no false alarms yet.
I haven't heard any either, so that's good.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All the new business. Yeah. Look at us. All right, COVID update, Brad.
In your packet, you can see that we're now up to 535. When I looked, excuse me, just looked as far as tests administered. And then we have made some changes. Those highlighted areas that were changed, we met with the County Health Department and changed that to our COVID test to know, stay, and play document. That has been updated, and we're following that.
And you sent that out, I think I saw that, right? That's
Yes,
been sent
ma'am.
out to everybody so everybody knows, okay? All right. And then does anybody have any questions about that, or? Okay. Moving down to the approval to bid for the Ford Transit van.
We received bids back. One bid from Rusty Eck Ford in Wichita for $34,442 for a 2020 Ford Transit van. 10-passenger van. Meets our specifications. And would recommend, we have in capital outlay, $60,000 set aside for vehicles. The used one that we were looking at was $43,000. It was an 8-passenger. It was a 2019. And the issue, delivery date, he said 20 to 30 weeks, but we hopefully will have it before then. And so with approval, then we move forward and get the purchase order and do those things, because according to them too, the 2022s they're not producing them anymore after November. So,
Possibility of next call.
yeah.
What we need.
I move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say the same. All right. Moving down to the next item, approving increasing teacher substitute pay.
Presently, we are at $90. Area schools, one was paying $110, Mission Valley. The others, Cobb Valley, Rock Creek, Wamego, and I believe Council Grove were all at $100. And so would recommend that we go to 110. And we're having trouble getting substitutes. I don't know if it will help or not, but just FYI, that cost increase, approximately $5,000. We can use ESSER funds to pay for that because it is, quote, possibly COVID related, that people don't want to substitute or be in buildings due to COVID situations. So we can be able to do that as a premium pay item. So I would recommend that we go to 110 a day versus the 90.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, approved, Brett.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on down to personnel. So we've got approve employment.
We need an executive session.
It doesn't say.
I'm asking.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So we've got food service, Brooklyn Baker, emergency substitute teacher, Clinton Firstbrook, substitute teachers A, Kim Hall, and emergency substitute teacher, Justin Smith.
I move for approval.
Second.
discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Okay.
And then I think it would be important with the acceptance of that, that you determine what search group you're going to use to determine, possibly help with the new superintendent.
You didn't say resignations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She didn't say resignation. All she did was apply.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're
I'm
not
sorry.
approving
Yeah.
yours, so.
Yeah,
So
we're actually just
we're
doing
going-
that.
Yep, we're going right over the top.
Approving transfer
Nice
duties.
That's it.
Move to adjourn. We have a move to
Move
adjourn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that was getting ignored, Brad. All right, so item number 2 under personnel would be accept the resignations or retirement of one Superintendent Brad Starnes. So, and then we need to determine with that, if we're gonna use what service, if a service, we're gonna choose to use to, find one, so.
The approval probably should be different.
Yes.
I move to accept Brad's resignation.
So we moved in second. Discussion. All right.
Thank you, Brad,
Yeah.
for everything you've done for our district, everything you've brought to our district, and most of all for putting the investment in our kids and putting first things first. I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. It's been on.
You've been very appreciated, Brad. It'd be hard shoes to fill. All right, well, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion besides that? No? All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Well, I guess it's accepted.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, we need to discuss, how we want to move forward with our finding.
I move to use KSB for the superintendent and the search.
I'll second
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to use KASB for superintendent search. Discussion on that?
I think it's important for us to, just to add on, I think it is important for us to have a outside consultant to help us. It's a lot of work to do that as a board, so I think it'll be helpful for us to have an outside entity assist.
I agree. I would like to have some professional help on that. Okay. I'm sorry.
It's been moved and seconded.
it. Just,
Yeah.
just discussion.
Any other discussion on that? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry. Okay, approved to use KASB services then. All right, there's no transfer of duties. So, yeah, superintendent, board member forum. Kelly? Oh,
No,
oh,
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry, Brad. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm done.
You're
You're
done.
Moving
Moving on. Brad.
Not a problem. Hey, get it, yeah, exactly. Just, to, with things and the timeline and with, utilizing Kansas Association of School Boards. Right now, there's 2 ongoing searches, Wamego with the interim and Baldwin City. So those were 2. Then there's Sublette, Altoona Midway, and Marysville. So it's a good time to get in and for sure get out there to people and talk to them about those things. But so there's relatively small number of openings, which though I think there will be quite a few. And so a good opportunity to find a great candidate early to meet your particular needs.
Jerome?
Guttering been addressed, pictures we saw of the guttering. Wasn't there,
Yes,
that's all been addressed.
it has. Yep. And what, tell me if I'm wrong, but what Jerome's referencing to with the structural piece of that we hooked the guttering, Gary Blanton, actually, if you go look, there's white PVC pipe from that, and we were concerned that those were backed up and those weren't getting out to the street, and checked all those, and yes, they are. So, yeah. Still some stuff, don't get me wrong, that there was still some leak, but not to the extent of what it was.